Hey guys, welcome back to Magic TV. My name's Craig. It's 9 o'clock, which means it's time for a Talk Magic. And today I am doing an interview with the Scottish sensation himself. This is a man that has won more awards, basically the busiest magician that you'll ever meet. He's everywhere. He's done everything. He does stage, he does close-up. He's now releasing product. Like, he is incredible. He's inspirational. And I'm so glad I've finally got him on Magic TV. I am, of course, talking about the one and only Elliot Bibby. How you doing, Elliot?
Wow, I'm very good, thank you. Yeah. How you doing?
I'm good, and thank you. I know you're busy. Like, you're all over the place. Like, you talk to me about some of the stuff you're doing, and it makes me feel tired. So, thanks for finding the time to jump on with me. I really appreciate it.
No worries. It's a nice break actually, because I just became a dad, so I've got like a 10-month-old daughter. So it's actually quite nice to work.
Yeah, been there, done that. Bought the t-shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can be a nightmare. But like, seriously, you are everywhere. Like, you're in Fringe festivals all over the world. You're winning competitions. You're so busy. You're doing sellout shows everywhere. You do close-up. You do stage. I mean, I described you. I was speaking to Tom Mullinger, our friend Tom, our mutual friend Tom, and I said to Tom, he must be the best kept secret in magic because he's everywhere. But I think you're so busy, you don't have time to really boast about it too much in the magic community. We don't see you like all the time within the magic community. I mean, obviously, I saw you at the IBM, and you do pop up here and there, but it's few and far between. I think is it because you're so busy working?
Yeah, I'm a very busy magician working, as you say, at lots of different events. And I was going to say I'll apologise now for my accent, but I won't apologise for that. So if you can't understand me, hit the captions down below for subtitles. My Scottish accent. But yeah, I am traveling all over the place, and as you say, performing close up and stage, and I've just sort of flown under the radar a bit in the magic sort of community. I think that'll sort of change after lecturing at the Magic Circle at the end of last year, and also releasing a couple of products coming up as well, which I'm sure we'll get onto. But yeah, I think that once I do that, then my name will sort of slowly start to pop up a little bit more. But yeah, I've just sort of kept myself to myself and just plowed on through.
Fantastic. That's great. And so let's talk about where you came from and how you got into magic. I know we were talking off camera beforehand. You got into it around about the age of 10, right? Quite early on. What's your origin story in magic? How did that all come to be?
So my sort of origin story was I was 10 years old, and I was on a family weekend trip in London, and we visited Hamley's big toy shop, and I was about that high, and I saw the demonstrator demonstrating one of the Marvin's Magic products, the dynamic coins, little stack of 10p's, and I was just mesmerized by it. I was like, wow, that's amazing. And I spent all my pocket money that month on that little set, and that was me hooked. So for every Christmas and birthday after that, I was always getting little magic sets and tricks and just building up my collection. And I never really had a sort of mentor or anything like that. It was all sort of self-taught, and I did it through school and high school. And I always remember I was watching it last week actually, because I try and record as much as I can of me performing and just have it on YouTube as unlisted videos. And it was my very first stage performance at my high school in the talent show, and it's a cringy to watch back. But it's quite funny to see how far I've come. So yeah, I did it through school and high school, and then got all my grades in high school, and then went off to university, where I studied engineering with sports. Nothing to do with magic at all, but as well as magic, I always loved playing a lot of sports, football and golf, and also building things like Lego, and loved all that. So I thought, I'll put them both together, and now I could either go to Napier University in Edinburgh or down to Loughborough. Edinburgh is only about 40 minutes away, Loughborough hours away, and also in Scotland the tuition fees are paid for by the government, so it was a no-brainer. So I went to Edinburgh. Studied there for 4 years, graduated, and then missed my graduation ceremony because I was in Vegas with Chris Dugdale and a few other magicians working on a show out there for a few weeks, and then came back and thought, you know what, let's just be a magician, see how long I can sort of ride this wave for. And that's been about nine and a half, almost 10 years now as my full-time job.
Wow. I want to backtrack because we covered
Yeah.
an awful lot very, very quickly there. So
Yeah.
before you decided to go full time, were you obviously you got into it at the age of 10 and you talked about having a talent show performance while you were in school. When did you were you gigging part-time, or like when did you actually start going out and doing gigs?
So I think I must have been about 16, 17. And I still remember my first ever paid gig. I had to get the train all the way through to Edinburgh myself, and it was the first time traveling through. And it was a house party for one of my dad's friends. And there was only like seven or eight of them sitting in the living room. And I came in with my little case that I'd got from B&Q, the black, blue, and the red ones that all fit inside each other. I think most magicians have them. And yeah, and I opened it up, and I was literally on my knees in the living room doing these little tricks. And I remember taking out a deck of cards, blue deck of bicycles, and it's so vivid, this memory. And I spread through them. And there was little red specks of, I was like, what is that? And I spread through, and then I realized it was blood. And I'd been that nervous that I'd been biting the skin of my nails on my fingers, and it started to bleed. So I'd spread through, there's blood on these cards. Then I start to panic. I'm like, oh no, I've cut myself. So I go through to the kitchen with the host, and she's like, okay, here's a plaster, just pop it on there. So I go back through, and I don't know if anybody's ever tried to do magic with plasters on your fingers. It's quite difficult to do that. It totally affects your sleight of hand. So yeah, that was an interesting start to the gig, and I got paid £50, and that was it. Yeah, it was great. I still remember that. That was my first sort of gig, and then off the back of that, I was then sort of doing parties and I got residencies as well in my local town, and also up at Glen Eagles as well, which is quite a prestigious hotel. That was when I was about 18, I think, and I was up there every Wednesday performing, which was amazing.
And you've talked about Closeup up until this point. Now I know you only a couple of years ago you won the IBM Close Up Magician of the Year, which is incredible. But I don't think of you as a close-up magician. I think of you as a stage magician, because a lot of the high-profile stuff that I see you do, Fringe festivals, and I just watched your your beach ball show, which was brilliant. That's all obviously stage. Did you gravitate towards stage when you were in school and you started gigging, or was it really just close up and that happened later on?
Yes, it was really just close up, and then I love close up and I love cards. That's my one thing. And if you ask anyone, I'll always try and find the most difficult way to do something. I'm actually left-handed, but I've learned, because I'm self-taught, basically learned from the books, which are obviously teaching right-handed methods, and then created them myself. So I'm of that generation where we didn't really have YouTube coming up, or we did have it, but not like what we've got today with YouTube and social media, where you can learn stuff just by copying it very quickly. So I was learning from books where you're obviously reading it, trying to come up with it yourself. So being left-handed, I'm like, how do I hold the cards this way or that way? So I basically created my own moves in my head, and a very complex way to do a very simple thing. So I've always loved that from the close-up side of it. And also being left-handed, a lot of magicians will look, when they're watching me, they'll look for certain things, and they won't see it even though I am using it. I'm trying to talk in code here. So that's from the sort of close-up side. And then being based in Edinburgh, it was sort of a no-brainer to do the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, or the Edinburgh Festival Fringe, which is like the biggest arts festival in the world. Thousands of shows happen there in August. So this year, actually 2023, when we're filming this will be my 10th year performing at Edinburgh Festival Fringe, and that will be coming up in August. So I mean, we could talk about this in a whole different video about the Fringe. I've got so much knowledge on it, but so I did my first sort of stand-up show then, but I had to learn so much and so quickly. I mean, if I tell you, my very first Fringe show, I was doing dynamic coins on stage in front of a room of about 150 people with no projector or anything. Like,
What?
what a crazy thing to do. I mean, only the first 2 rows could see it. So it's just like learning. You have to learn very quickly from that about how to obviously then present to a bigger room. So yeah, the Fringe has been sort of invaluable for me about learning how to do the stage stuff.
So I get a lot of questions on this channel about how to transition from close up to stage. I want to carry on talking about your journey, but let's just take a break for a second. As somebody who has successfully, very successfully moved from close up to stage, how did you do it? Like, is there any advice you can give people?
So I've got a little saying, which, well, it's not my saying, I think it's Richard Branson. He says, you say yes to everything and then work out how you're going to do it. And that's my sort of motto that I always remember. So if a gig comes in, and I'll just say yes to it and then work out how I'm going to do it, which sometimes isn't the best practice. But I've almost got this. Friends have said to me, Elliot, you've just got no fear. And I just don't have a fear of doing stuff. So I remember one year I did a show at the Fringe called with another magician called Dave and Elliot's Wheel of Magic, and it was an improv magic show where we'd have a wheel with 12 different words on it. We'd rub some off and we'd get audience suggestions. So they would just shout out a random word or a phrase. We would write it on the wheel, spin the wheel, whichever word it stopped at. We would then have 10 seconds to come up with a trick relating to that word. And we had like a box of props at the back. So it's an hour show. So that was like one of these things where I'd just throw myself into it and go, right, okay, 10 seconds to come up with a routine on stage using a few props that I had. So yeah, it's like no fear. So I think the best thing I could say, a best bit of advice would just be go out there, try and do it. There's lots of open mic nights. I'm quite fortunate that the style of magic I do is comedy magic. So I can get away with performing at comedy clubs and doing, that's where I was last night actually. I was doing literally just 5 minutes. I mean, it's unpaid, but 5 minutes on stage in a comedy club and just testing out new material, just trying to do as many gigs as possible like that, to try out new stuff. And yeah, so I think a bit of advice would be go out there, try and do it, what's the worst that's going to happen? That's another little phrase that I say. What is really the worst thing that's going to happen? It doesn't work. So what? Move on, try something else.
That's very true. That is really true. And you know what? There's no substitute for flight time, especially when you're working in new material. And you'll hear people giving advice on Facebook groups all the time. You should never do a free gig. You should always get paid. But ultimately, at the end of the day, if you're working in new material, the best way to get good at it is go and do it in front of a live audience.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm probably not the cheap one. I know for a fact I'm probably one of the most expensive magicians in Scotland when it comes to corporate and weddings and stuff. But as I say, I've gone and done 5 minutes on the stage last night for free because over the Christmas period, I was doing so much close up that I didn't have a chance to do as much stage, and I want to just keep fresh and because I don't want to go like a few months without doing stage to then have a stage gig and go, all right, well, what am I doing type thing. So it's all about keeping fresh and that type of stuff.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. One other question before we get back on track. You mentioned about how you love card magic and you'll find the most difficult way to do things. And I've seen you do very technical card magic and it's beautiful. But when you lectured, I saw you lecture. I was sitting in the audience with Ryland and I watched you lecture at the IBM. Everything was very, very simple. There was nothing really complicated. It was brilliant lecture. It was the highlight of my IBM, but it was super practical. I remember the stuff with the tins and the custard, the cake, and just everything was just so simple. So, I mean, how do you balance your love of technical card magic at a gig, a close-up gig, with, you know, I mean, the stuff that I saw at the lecture was not technical at all. Was that because you were trying to pitch it to the room and you wouldn't do? And you, like, I'm trying to find out like what you would do at a close-up job, because I've seen two sides to Elliot Bibby.
Yeah. So I've almost gone on this journey where I've learned Who was it? I think it was Simon Lovell. I remember asking him one time at Blackpool. I went up to his stand and I said, if there was one piece of advice, what would you give to like a young magician? And I was just there myself. And at this point, I didn't really know who he was. I sort of knew he was very good with cards. And he said, the one thing that I wish I'd done sooner was really focus on one genre of magic and just get really good at one thing. All right, okay. And then he also said, he said to, I can't remember what the second thing was. It'll come back to me.
When that happens.
Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, it was to focus on that. And
knowing Simon, it would probably be buy me a drink.
Okay, all that. But yeah, it was. Sorry, what was the question again? I'm going off. I love to go off on tangents here.
I'm exactly the same. No, it was about the type of magic you perform in a close-up gig and whether
yeah. So yeah, I've gone on that journey of learning everything. So he said, learn everything. That's what it was. He said, learn as much as you can, and then really narrow it down to one certain genre. I just didn't do the narrowing down, but I just went out there and learned everything. So another piece of advice for anyone that's watching is if you're part of like a local magic club or there's lectures there's lots of lectures online now. I love card magic, but I'll go and watch like a kids entertainer lecture. Even though I don't do kids parties or anything like that, I'll look at it and go, right, there will be something that I'll be able to take from it. I don't really do that much coin magic, but I would go and watch a coin magician work because maybe I could take something from it and maybe use it for something else, use a different prop instead of coins, maybe use bottle caps or use ropes for somehow to use the moves. So I'd encourage people to watch stuff that they wouldn't normally take an interest in. Because I've obviously got the Edinburgh Fringe Festival here, I'll go and watch a few magic shows, but I'll also go and watch other things like ballet, which has nothing to do with magic, but you watch how they move and all that stuff, and then you can take it into your own magic. But yeah, back to your question of the close-up and the technical stuff. I've gone on that journey where I've learned everything. I've learned all the technical stuff, and now I'm simplifying it back down now. So I will throw in some technical stuff like on the offbeat just to keep me on the ball, because I don't want to sort of be stagnant when I'm performing and just sort of going through the motions. I want to be sort of challenging myself as well, which I think keeps it fun. So I will throw in a few technical moves, but also I really just want to make it really simple, focus on the audience. For me, it's not about, hey, here's some card flourishes, look at me, I'm better than you. It's always been about the audience and how it makes them feel. So I'm sort of this vehicle using magic as a tool to make them do the magic. If that makes sense. So
great answer. Great answer.
We got there in the end.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. And this is an incredible interview. Learning a lot. I really am. So back to you as a performer. So obviously you went through school and you were doing talent shows. You started gigging at the age of 16. I remember reading on your bio that you spent a couple of years demoing in Hamleys. How did that come about? And did that help you as a performer?
Yeah, so it's when I was 18, 19 years old, and I was at university, and I thought I need a sort of job to keep me going through whilst I was studying. And being based in Edinburgh, my gran, who's no longer here, but she was a massive supporter of me. She was always championing me and telling all her friends. I mean, their friends never booked me, but she was always telling everybody about her grandson, Elliot, who's a magician. And I'd actually just accepted a job in Argos, Christmas temp job, and I'd accepted that on the Monday. And then my gran had sent through this newspaper clipping of, it was Hamleys, and it was opening a store in Glasgow for this big Christmas. And I thought, oh, it'd be pretty cool to work there. But then I said, oh, I've already accepted this job in Argos. So then on the Tuesday, on the Wednesday, I remember going for the interview. I'd accepted the job in Argos on the Monday. The Wednesday, I'd gone in to Glasgow for this interview. I'd taken a few tricks with me as well, had the interview, and I went to my very first ever concert in Glasgow that night because I thought I'd do the two things in once. Went to the interview, went to my first concert, which was Green Day, and then came back on the Thursday. I got a phone call basically saying, "You've got the job in Hamleys as a demonstrator." So I wasn't working directly for Marvin. I was working just for Hamleys as a demonstrator. And then on the Friday, I had to phone Argos and say, "I'm not coming in tomorrow because I've got a new job, sorry." And then I went on all the training that was an amazing experience. Really learning about customer service and how to demonstrate products. So I was not just demonstrating magic, but boomerangs, helicopters, flying UFOs, everything in the shop. And especially in Glasgow, it was a tough audience. You're getting like Glasgow Neds coming in going, "Oh, there's a string there, I can see that," or "Oh, you're using two cards, or those cards are sticking together," and you're like, how do you combat that as like an 18, 19-year-old? I had to learn very quickly at how to obviously win them over, get them on side, but then also dealing with, and also as a salesman as well, you've got given sales targets. So every day I'm going, right, I've got to sell 30 magic kits. How am I going to do that? But I would always smash my targets by like lunchtime, and then for the rest of the afternoon after my lunch break, I just used to mess around. So I was just like trying to see, right, okay, how many boomerangs can I actually throw and catch in the one go? So it was a lot of fun. I was always getting in trouble from the bosses going, "Elliot, why are you messing around?" I'm like, "Well, I've hit my targets." And every week my targets would just go up, up, and up. And then we would also get people coming into the shop going, "Oh, I bought this magic set last week. It's pretty difficult. My kid can't do it." And I was like, "Oh, have you got it there? Come over." And I'd spend like 10, 15 minutes. And I'm on the floor of the shop teaching the kids how to do like the D-lights or dynamic coins, Svengali Den, all this. I'm just teaching them so that they actually went away. I got in trouble for that as well because it was meant to be selling at that point. But the sort of highlight from that was, I remember near the end of the 2 years, I got a phone call from Marvin Berger himself, and he was just said, "Personally, I want to say thank you for all the work you're doing up there. I know that I'm not actually employing you, but I just want to say thanks because I was wondering why my magic sets were selling really well up there." So that was really nice.
Great.
Yeah,
That's really cool. That's awesome. So somebody who's new into magic, if they get an opportunity to be a magic demonstrator, is that something that people should do?
I'd absolutely, yeah, recommend it because you're doing the same sort of tricks over and over again. It's that repetition of getting better. And I had a competition for one Christmas. Actually, they sent up a demonstrator from London, Lawrence, his name was, and we were just both taking it in turns to dem. And I always love a challenge. Like anytime I'm performing on stage and as part of like a cast or like a mixed bill variety show, I'll always ask people, right, give me a couple of words that you want me to say on stage, and I'll try and fit them in. And some of the words that I've managed to get in has been like hilarious. So I'm always like trying to challenge myself. And I said to Lawrence, I was like, right, let's see how many coins we can load in to the dynamic coins at the end. So when the 10p's change at the end, it's meant to change to like 5 1pences. And I hold the record for, well, between me and him, for 26 coins loaded in at the end. I mean, as you're loading it, I mean, they're about that big when the coins when they're together, but I was literally holding it like this, covering them. The stack was about that high. Then as you go, boom, and all the coins just went everywhere. 26 coins.
That's
so I challenge anybody to try and beat that. Let me know if you do.
Wow. So
yeah,
that's awesome. That's awesome. So that was while you were at university.
Yeah.
When did you go pro? You said that you've been doing the Fringe for 10 years. Was it around about the same time?
So I got to about third year of university and I was like, this engineering stuff is actually pretty difficult. And I remember walking out of an exam. It was like a 3-hour exam that only had like 6 questions, and you pretty much had to write an essay for each one. And I just looked at it going, I actually don't, this is actually past my sort of capacity. I don't actually know what to do. So I left the exam after like half an hour, and I went straight up to my lecturer's office, and I was like, this is just really difficult. I don't think I can progress further. So I remember in third year, you also had to pick an optional module. So it could be anything from sports engineering to do with your topic, anything up to like wine tasting. That was a module. So I picked marketing because I thought maybe at this point in my head, I'm going, I probably don't really want to sit in a big warehouse testing golf clubs and doing the engineering stuff for the rest of my life. Probably want to do magic. So something in my head was telling me, right, if I do marketing, then at least I can learn how to market myself as a magician. So I did that, and our little group ended up getting best in year. So in fourth year, I took marketing again as an optional module and just really tried to struggle and push myself through. I mean, I'm not proud of this, but I wrote my dissertation in 3 days. It's meant to take a whole year to do it. I wrote it in 3 days, and yeah, to be honest, I don't actually have a copy of it. I deleted it by mistake. I think there's one copy that they keep in the university in the library, so it's there. But that was how much I didn't really care about it at the end. I mean, I just scraped by. I did get the degree in the end. I passed. But when it was about third year of university, that's when all my sort of focus shifted to the magic, and that's when I got my first real residency in a nightclub. So it was a very high-end nightclub in Edinburgh called Lulu. It's still there today, the nightclub underneath Tiger Lily, up on George Street, which is like your very posh street in Edinburgh. So it was every Saturday night from 11 till 1. I would just go in, I'd text the manager, oh, I'm available tonight, I'll come in. And that was a real eye-opener as well, because I'm entertaining drunk people that are on a night out, that are buying bottles of vodka, they don't really care. And then here's Elliot, the student, coming in going, hi, do you want to pick a card? I'm like, what? You got some vodka? I'm like, no, I'm working, pick a card. So that was a real learning curve as well, to sort of, how do you perform to drunk people that don't want to see magic, where they can't hear you? So you then have to create this whole new set of close-up magic, which is, that really helped me as well along the way now, looking back, because I can now perform to international audiences who don't understand English just through visual stuff as well. So I think really third year of university, so I was maybe about 21, I think. 21, 22, that's when I sort of took it a bit more seriously, and started really promoting myself and going to networking events put on like through the university and other things like that.
That's great. Wow, that's awesome. So so when you went, because I was looking at your bio again beforehand, and it's like the most complete bio ever. It's amazing seeing all the stuff you've done. I noticed that so you went kind of pro. When did you finish university? About 2012?
I think so, yeah, about that.
Yeah. So I was looking at the bio, and in 2012, you were on Britain's Got Talent and Britain's Got Variety.
Yeah.
In the same year.
In the same year, yeah.
Where did that, was that a desire? Was that where you kind of gone, right, okay, I'm going to be a magician. I need to get myself out there. I'm going to do Britain's Got, because I don't remember you on there at all. So, yeah. And a lot of people back then, it's not the case now with Russ Stevens, because with Russ Stevens being on there now, it's kind of a safe bet for a magician to go on BGT, and they're going to be treated well. But back in 2012, you got like Dave Allen being ridiculed for Dave the Duck for no reason. You've got, magic was kind of made to almost be ridiculed. So
yeah,
where did that come from, and how was that experience?
It's really funny actually, because this is on a technicality. So I did Britain Does Variety, which is the sort of Sky's version of it, when I won the regional finals, which you know about, and then everyone that wins the regional finals get put into sort of the big grand final. And in 2012, it was at the Watford Palace Theatre, right? And so then I'm down there, and this is the first time I've ever entered any sort of big sort of talent show like this. And I think that was the year that you won it. It was slightly unusual. I don't know if you. Yeah. So I remember going to Watford, and like, there's more magicians on, and it was yourself. And yeah, I went on, I performed. It was a trick that I actually created myself, and I had no out for it. It could have gone wrong, and I didn't have an out. So I also remember as well, the video is still online, I think, of it. So if you search for it, it's very embarrassing. but it's still there. And so I did that. We didn't win because you won it. Well done. Not that I'm bitter.
I remember watching it. You did great.
And then later on as well, I applied for Britain's Got Talent. Now, this was when I didn't know how TV or anything like this worked. So I applied. They're like, okay, come along to this big exhibition centre in Edinburgh, sit down for a few hours. I'm sitting there and looking at everybody else. And oh, hang on, can you just sit over here for me with this group of people? All right, okay, fine. And the cameras are panning around, and then the announcement goes, can everybody please go outside? And they made us stand outside, and they made us like 100 of us run up to the gates, all looking excited. Like, why are they doing this? Then we go back inside, and they say, "Oh, Elliot, there's another magician over here." All right, okay. Can we just put this mic on you? So they mic'd us both up. They sat us in the middle of the waiting room, and they surrounded us with a few other interesting-looking people that are in costumes and stuff. And they say, "Can you just chat about how magic is perceived on the show?" I was like, "Yeah, okay." So I'm chatting away, and the other magician, Curtis, I think his name was, he said, "I don't think Simon Cowell really likes magic." And this is when Simon was perceived on the show as not liking magic, like you say. I said, "Yeah, it's Simon. He just doesn't know, right? Just doesn't know." And then that was it. Didn't hear anything about it. I went and did my little 10-minute performance to a camera and a producer sitting there, and they're like, "That's great. We'll be in touch." I didn't hear anything about it, and they said, if you're not in touch by this date, then you've not made it onto the show. So I didn't hear by that date. That's fine. Forgot about it. And I was doing a corporate gig up in Aberdeen, up north of Scotland, one night, and I turned my phone off onto airplane mode. And I remember turning it back on, and my phone just went crazy. It was like notifications, and everybody basically saying, "Oh, I've just seen you on Britain's Got Talent. Is that you, Elliot, on Britain's Got Talent?" I was like, "What? I don't remember being on it." And basically, you'd use this cutaway shot for about 7 seconds of me going, "Oh yeah, Simon, he just doesn't know about magic." So on a technicality, I have been on Britain's Got Talent, chatting about it. Didn't perform on it, but chatted about it, and yeah, it was hilarious because I've still got the clip from that, and yeah.
Would you ever go back on now that magic's been completely turned around and perceived in a totally different way? Or do you think that, like, because obviously you are a big deal, you know, you headline shows all over the place. Do you need it now? Is it needed? Like, or is it something that, you know, where?
Yeah, I think it is something I would do, but yeah, I would have to sort of put my own. I love trying to be as original as possible in everything that I do. I mean, or have some sort of angle to do. I mean, my Fringe shows, which I'm sure we'll talk about, have all different themes and stuff to them. So I'd want to just go on there and be myself, really, if I was to do it. But I mean, I've always said to people when they've asked me, "Would you do Britain's Got Talent?" I've always said, I think it was more relevant a few years ago when you could use it more. But I think because there's been that many magicians on it now, people are like, I mean, for example, when people ask me in the public, "Oh, would you do Britain's Got Talent?" I'm like, probably. But if I was to ask you, remember the magician that won it, what's his name? And they're like, "Oh, well, there was a magician that won it." So, like, no disrespect to Richard, but like people just, they don't remember it. For that 1 year, it's the same as all sort of reality TV shows like Love Island and stuff. You've really got to use it and maximize that presence within like a year or so. I mean, the best person that I've seen do this really well is Colin Cloud, who is just on TV all the time. He did stuff on This Morning, and obviously America's Got Talent, lots of stuff from that, and just constantly being in the public eye on TV every so often. If you just go on it once, then you sort of get forgotten about. But when you start appearing constantly, then I think that's when TV can be good for you.
Yeah,
I think you can actually get more value from, for example, TikTok or social media, any sort of social media, by putting videos out there. You get seen by way more people, which could then potentially lead to them. I mean, the only reason I would do it was be for the end of a Fringe festival, to build that audience of people to then come and, "Oh, he was on Britain's Got Talent. I remember his face. I remember he did that that thing, whatever it was. That's why I'd want to do something sort of original on it.
That's I totally get where you're coming from. I'd love to see you on it, but maybe one year, maybe one year, maybe one year. But yeah, I mean, so let's carry on talking about your career, because obviously, without being funny, you've got the career that is a blueprint for a lot of people that are that are wanting to get ahead in magic. You through hard work and determination, you've gone out there and you've just made yourself known. You've, like you said at the very beginning of the interview, you've taken so many opportunities on. 2014 was a really big year for you, because obviously you headlined your first show at Falkirk, but that was when your first Fringe show went on, and also at the same time, that was when you did your thing in Las Vegas. So I mean, 2014 was big. Was that kind of, you finished university, it's like, right, I'm going to take this seriously?
Yeah, that was I mean, at that point, I didn't really know how serious I was taking it. I was just sort of going with the flow type thing. Did the first show. I'd worked with Chris Dugdale for a few years before as a sort of assistant at the Edinburgh Fringe, and it was through Tony Middleton, his producer. He put an ad on Magic Week, I think it was, saying, we're looking for a young up-and-coming magician that can flyer for us, so like hand out flyers for the show, promote the show in Edinburgh, and also sell merchandise afterwards. And I applied to the advert a week late because I'd seen it late, but I thought, you know what, I'm going to apply anyway. And that's just typical me going, I've seen an opportunity. Oh, it was due a week ago. Why not? What are they going to say? What's the worst that's going to happen? Oh, we've already got someone. Or in this case, they hadn't. So I applied for it and they're like, yeah, that's great. So for that first year working for Chris, I was helping him literally sticking posters up around Edinburgh, flyering, really promoting his show and working backstage. And then every year after that, for like 3 years, I would learn so much from him. He's one of my best friends in Magic now. And we just continued from that point on. And yeah, so those 3 years learned from him. And then 2014 did my first show, the Fringe, and then Chris took me over to Vegas, and then we worked on a show out there. And then I came back and thought, right, I'm going to give this a go. And at that point, I was like, right, what we're going to do. So obviously I'd come from Hamleys, so I was like, right, okay, I could sort of put a kids show together. So I was doing kids' birthday parties, I was doing corporate, I was doing weddings, I was doing 21st birthday parties and bowling clubs. I was doing everything because I thought I need to pay my rent. So I literally did every job that came in. I was like, yeah, I can do it. So I got known for doing everything. And then I did that for about a year. And then I was like, I really need to narrow this down. I did like a few courses, I really invested in myself. I think that's something that magicians don't really do. I think that's another thing I'd recommend doing is you can buy all the latest tricks and you spend hundreds, if not thousands of pounds or dollars on magic tricks, but that's only get you so far. And if you want to be a professional magician, it's show business. You've got the show, but you also need to focus on the business side of it. So there's lots of different courses out there. So I invested in a couple of those and learned from people that had sort of been there, and really narrowed it down to sort of my sort of ecosystem, I call it, which is weddings and corporate. And that's what I really focused on, was those two things. Because I thought, if going a little bit technical here, business chat, but if I was to do a kids party, then maybe the dad that's booked me isn't going to look at me as, oh, I might employ him for my corporate job. He's looking at me at Elliot, a kids entertainer. So if I do weddings, then people might be like, oh, we see you at the wedding, do you also do corporate? And they sort of play off each other. So I'm quite careful now, and I sort of pick and choose the things that the gigs that I do, because I want to be seen in the best light. And things that sort of fit into my ecosystem, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes total sense. That makes total sense. And for people, obviously a big platform for you to show people what you can do is the Edinburgh Fringe. Like every year you've come up with your own show every single year for 10 years now. You're there in front of, in front of bookers, in front of producers, getting your name out there. For people that want to do the Edinburgh Fringe, and people want to make it work for them. Because I've spoken to people in the past that have done the Fringe and they've got nothing from it and they've lost a fortune. And then I've spoken to people like Tom Crosby, who attributes pretty much all of his success for doing the Fringe every single year. And I imagine that you're in a very similar position to Tom, in that a lot of the stuff that's come your way and a lot of the opportunities that you've had have been as a result of having that as a showcase. So what advice, I mean, we could do a video, probably a 4-hour video just on the Fringe, but, you know, is there anything that you can say from your experience of doing 10 years of the Fringe that you can give anybody any advice on putting a Fringe show together and making it work for them? Because you kind of lose a lot of money if you're not careful, can't you?
Yeah, you can. You can lose a lot. We're talking thousands if you don't do it well, not properly. But the one thing that I say to people, my one bit of advice would be, you have to know why you're doing it. So why do you want to do the Fringe? If it's just to say, yeah, I've done the Fringe, then come to Edinburgh and I'll put you in touch with someone that books acts in like multiple build variety shows, and you can come up, you can do a 10-minute spot, and you can say you've done the Edinburgh Fringe, if it's just for that. I know a couple of magicians that have done that, and or they've just done one show, they've come up, done a 1-hour show, and that's it. And they've sold out that show, and they can put on their posters, I've sold out an Edinburgh Fringe run or whatever. So there's lots of ways of doing it like that. If you want to come and make money, there's ways of doing that. If you want to come and be in front of producers, there's ways of doing that. But you have to really know why. So every year I set myself a couple of pointers going, why am I doing this? Is it because I want to have a great show, a 1-hour show that I can then take on tour, or I can then, if someone inquires, going, oh, hey, can you do like a 15-minute cabaret spot, or can you do like 20 minutes after dinner show? You can say, yeah, because you've worked in all that material. Now, I do I must do over, I'm trying to think, last August, I did over, I think it was 70 shows in 1 month. Well, it's like 3.5 weeks. Now, that's not full 1-hour shows. That's like 15-minute spots here. And obviously, every day I do my 1-hour show. And then I'll run over into the other side of town, and I'll run on stage. I'll do 15 minutes. I'll run over here and do 10 minutes. So really, you have to have 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and like a full hour show. And the interesting thing about the Fringe is that you only have, well, generously, you have half an hour between shows. So the moment the show, because they pack like maybe 7 or 8 shows a day into like one little venue. So the first show starts, that show starts, then you're like here, and then the next show. So you're sandwiched in the middle. So for example, the show before you finishes, you then have 30 minutes to get their audience out, their stuff off stage, your stuff on stage, all set, and then your audience in, and then you start the show. 30 minutes. So it's pretty tight. I mean, that's being generous as well. Usually you have like 15 minutes. So your show has to be really tight, everything packed in. One year I did a show called Magic in a Jiffy, and it was all about Jiffy bags. So that was great because all my tricks came from like 12 Jiffy bags that were in a little box. And I was like, here's a Jiffy bag. And that was the one time that I actually did the vanishing bandana, because it fitted perfectly in my show. That trick came from a Jiffy bag. It was great. And lots of magicians were like, why are you doing that? Why are you doing that one trick? But it fitted with the theme of the show. It worked perfectly. It was great. But that all came because I was like, right, I've only got 15 minutes to get my stuff set. If I preset everything backstage, and I mean, you don't have the luxury of like dressing rooms or anything like that. You literally have like a cupboard that you're like squished in. You're trying to prep everything. So yeah, if everything can be like really compact inside there, then it works great. Yeah.
So why do you do the Fringe now, 10 years on? You say you need to know how to do it. Why are you still doing it? Because I mean, people know who you are. You're super successful. You're not short of work. Why do you take basically a month off from bookings to run around like a blue ass fly?
That's a good question. I mean, this is the first year that I actually blocked out the whole of August and haven't taken any other bookings. So I'm really doubling down on it, because usually I'll do weddings in the afternoons, and which is even crazier. So I'm driving out of town. I mean, Edinburgh has like millions of people in it, and it's just absolutely crazy. Every venue or pub or basement gets turned into a venue. So you could be on seeing shows all over the place. So the population just like, I think it quadruples in Edinburgh. It's crazy. So it's busy enough as it is. So for me to try and do other gigs is just craziness. But I always do it because I know it's guaranteed work. So most Saturdays and Sundays, most Fridays and Saturdays I have a wedding. So obviously pays the bills, which means I can then also do the Fringe and take any losses or whatever in August. But this year I've not done that, and the reason for that is because because it's my 10th year, I'm doing two 1-hour shows a day, and as well as lots of guest spots on top of that. So I'm probably going to clear like over 100 shows in like the month, which is making me feel tired already thinking about it. But it's going to be my biggest one yet. But yeah, the reason for that is I just love the challenge and the whole process of going. My year pretty much revolves around August. So I'll work really hard at getting all the weddings throughout the rest of the year. And then August, I'm like, or building a show, and then perform the show, do it. And then the rest of the year, September, I usually have like, I don't even have a week off. I've got a few days off, then I'm straight into more gigs. And then January, February time. I mean, that's the thing about the Edinburgh Fringe. So we're obviously recording this in January, but everything has to be in by, well, for me, start of February, which is posters, Fringe blurbs, what's the show about, all this stuff, everything that goes in the Fringe brochure. That's all to be done now. So that's why sometimes if you look at the Fringe, most of the shows are quite vague in what they're doing because people haven't written them. I mean, I've got a show title and a show name, but I've not actually written the show yet. But I've got to have what the whole show's about, everything done by now. So it does take like pretty much the whole year to sort of think about it. When it gets to September, October, I'm already thinking about the next year. So, I mean, last August, I was already trying to put things in place for this August coming. So speaking to other companies and going, right, okay, this is my show. If you want to come and see it, if you like it, then let's talk for next year. So always planning ahead. So I think just because I just love the thrill, to go back to the question, is I love the thrill of it. I love performing. And for me, it's all about testing out that new material and just being fearless. It's a great place to fail, the Edinburgh Fringe. So you go on stage, test something out. If it doesn't work, fine. I've got another show in like 20 minutes time that I need to run to do it. So I'll go there. Maybe I'll tweak something. Maybe the timing of a joke, I'll prolong it a little bit. So then, and then you can just learn. And I'll just grab my phone and I'll have it leaning up against something, or I'll have a little tripod and I'll just film as much as I can so I can obviously watch it back and learn. So yeah, I think the reason I do it is just to get that stage time and work in new material. Because every year I try and write a brand new 1-hour show. There's a little bit crossover of routines that I do, but yeah, there's a lot of material I've gone through.
Do you ever have writer's block or creator's block? Do you ever get to a point where you're just thinking, you know what, I've got this show, I just can't think what to do with it. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to write it. I'm stuck. Have you ever got to that point?
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, I'm quite fortunate that I'll always try, and I've got a really good group of friends that I'll just bounce ideas off, and they're usually like, Elliot, you're an absolute idiot. What the hell? Especially last year when we came up with the idea of the show's called Elliot Bibby and the Magical Beach Ball, and the show was about this beach ball called Barry the Beach Ball, who's this big celebrity. And I went to the lengths of setting up an Instagram account for Barry the Beach Ball, and then I bought like 10,000 followers for him. So I spent like 80 quid of like my own money on 10,000 followers, because you can't have a celebrity beach ball that's got like 12 followers. It doesn't look great. So, I mean, I don't even know if anybody looked at the account, but that's the lengths that I went to. I'm always going to extreme lengths to create magic or create the whole show, which I think is quite important. And but yeah, my friends were like, that is just crazy that you've done that. And yeah, I just ran with it. I thought, you know what, just going to go with it. And in the end, it's probably the proudest show that I've done over the last 9 years or so.
Well, I saw it at the IBM and it was brilliant.
Yeah, thanks.
Absolutely brilliant. That was great. Wow. Okay. And then obviously running parallel with all of the stuff that you do at the Fringe and all the other, because that's not the only Fringe festival you do. You know, you've worked all over the world doing Fringe festivals. Outside of doing all of that, the other thing that you do is you do a lot of wedding magic as well. Would you say weddings are like one of your biggest things?
Yeah, so weddings is what pays my mortgage now. It's I love weddings, and just because everybody's really happy, a lot of fun. Um, Recently became well, about a year ago became a wedding MC as well. So I do a lot of hosting at weddings now as well, which is sort of came from the stage stuff as well. I thought obviously being on stage performing, a certain course came up, and I thought I'll invest in that. Became a professional wedding MC, so I'm hosting the weddings now, which is good fun. And yeah, it's just weddings are always they're such a happy thing, they're a happy place. Everyone's in a good mood, so it's not as if you're turned up. I've sort of veered away from corporate now and literally just do weddings and stage. So weddings is what pays the bills. The stage is the fun stuff. So yeah, August, as I say, going back to August, is that I work really hard for 11 months of the year so that I can have August to be creative and just do what I want. That's the thing about doing the Fringe and being arty is you don't need to, like, for example, if you turn up at corporate, you have to, everything has to be nailed, it has to be very clean. Whereas at the Fringe, I can let you do what I want. I can go on stage with a beach ball, like with big googly eyes on it. It's like something you couldn't really do that in sort of the corporate market. So that's why I literally just do weddings now. It's the fun stuff and do my close up, and then August stage, all that stuff. But yeah, I do a lot of weddings.
Can I ask a question? This is
Yeah,
a question that comes up an awful lot on the channel. We obviously, you spoke about earlier on having a 10-month-old child.
yeah,
Um, I I've only ever done one Fringe, which was the Brighton Fringe, but I spend a long time doing like the holiday park circuit, which is like basically I would disappear in March and then come back in September. Like I'd just be working constantly.
yeah.
And when I had kids, I kind of stopped doing the holiday park circus. I also stopped doing wedding fairs just because I wanted to spend. Do you think that having, like, you've just talked about what your summer is going to be like
Yeah,
over 100 shows, 2 1-hour shows a day include, and then guest spots. Like,
yeah,
how do you balance that time with your family
mm.
with that sort of schedule?
So this is something that's really important to me, and it's something that I learned basically over the last few years during lockdown was that um, I watch other podcasts, Diary of a CEO with Stephen Bartlett, and Jimmy Carr was on it, and he said something really profound, and this has stuck with me. And he said, "All you need is enough." So, and this is something that I've taken and just applied to my life. All you need is enough. So, what he means by that is I used to go out and I was absolutely killing myself doing every single gig that came in. And I was like, why am I doing that? Because I don't have a goal of trying to hit like 100 grand a year, or like, why am I trying to do every single gig? So all I need is enough. So all I need is enough to pay my bills, maybe go on holiday. That's it. So I then look at that and go, oh my God, like, I mean, that's why I'm pretty expensive, but I sort of know that I'm sort of worth it now. So when people come to me, well, how much you? I'm like, well, that's my price. I'd rather sit at home with my family than go out for like peanuts pretty much, or less than I feel that I'm worth. So I do higher paid gigs because I'd rather do a higher paid gig than do like doing close up, than do three to make up that fee, if that makes sense. Three lesser paid gigs. Um, so my sort of goal is to maybe do like 1 or 2 gigs a month, really. I mean, I'm nowhere near that, but my goal would be 1 or 2 gigs enough. And that's enough financially to pay my bills and have a little bit left over, because that's all I need, really. Which means that I can spend loads of time at home with my daughter and my family. Because for years I was missing like loads of events with my friends. I wouldn't be able, because most of my friends work like 9 to 5 jobs and they're out at the weekends, but that's when I'd be gigging. So I missed out on quite a lot of stuff. So now I've gone, like this year I booked to go away for a week in Ibiza with my mates, which is, I've not told my fiance this actually yet, so she probably won't watch this, it's fine. But I thought, you know what, I'm going to do it. I'm still youngish, and it's like the end of June that I'm doing it, which is right in the middle of wedding season. But I'm like, I've got a week here that I'm off. I mean, I've already had 2 inquiries for weddings during that week now, but I'm going, you know what? I'm going to Ibiza with my mates. Like, life's too short to worry about. Like, personally, life is far too short to just be stuck in a rut doing like a job that you don't like. And also, you just have to go out there and do what's fun. And that's me. So yeah,
That's
all you need is enough.
really good advice. Really, really, really good advice. Wow, absolutely incredible. So this, I want to talk about what you're doing. Well, actually, before I do that, I want to talk about your releases and stuff and what you're doing now. But before I do, in 2019, you entered the IBM Close Up Competition and won pretty much everything that you can win. You won the Rovi Trophy. You won the whole thing. Incredible achievements. And that's coming from someone who's entered and lost twice. I know how difficult it is a competition to enter. What made you decide to do that in 2019? Because at that point, you'd been doing Fringe festivals for like, what, 7 or 8 years. You were very well established as a wedding entertainer, as a corporate entertainer. Your skills at close-up and stage were very well known. What was the reason for entering the close-up competition? I mean, you already had so many accolades. It can't have been because you wanted to try and have on your website, oh, I've won this, when you've already done so much. Like, what was the point of that?
To be honest, I didn't really realize how big of a deal it was until I'd actually won it. So I'd sort of gone down and I'd won quite a few things. I mean, the first competition I ever entered was the Scottish Association of Magical Societies, which is basically the Scottish Championships of Magic, where I entered the stage competition and I did a manipulation act. So that's something that people don't really know is I love manipulation, card manipulation, and I created like a 12-minute manipulation act to do with train tickets. And it was all about how I've missed my train, and it was all to music that I'd edited myself, train sounds, and I got up to the ticket barrier, I'd lost my ticket. Oh, where's my ticket going? Oh, let me just produce some tickets. And that was because I was traveling backwards and forwards between Edinburgh and Glasgow, going to Hanley's. I take a train down. Oh, that's actually quite. So if you want to get into card manipulation, practice with train tickets because they're really thin. They're great. Save your money on manipulation cards. So I created this 12-minute, 10 or 12-minute card manipulation routine, and I'd entered it, and I came second. And I remember, I now realise from that act why card manipulators come on stage. They're either on stage and the curtains open, or they walk on very slowly. Because when I ran on stage, going, oh, I've missed my train, 3 out of my 4 loads in my jacket of cards just went like everywhere all over the stage. So halfway through my act, I'm on my hands and knees trying to pick these cards to do like interlock productions. And it was a nightmare, but I got through it. But that was the first sort of competition I entered, came second. I'm like, okay. And then I won some other stuff in Scotland. And then I've always sort of been sort of big about the sort of magic circles in Scotland and tried to give back as much as possible because I learned so much as a youngster coming into it from them, and they gave me opportunities to perform either at like Rotary clubs where I'm out there performing for free as a youngster, or on the bigger stages when the local magic circles put on bigger shows. So I thought, you know what, I'll go down to IBM, I'll enter this competition. And yeah, it was, I think I've got like a thing about performing in front of the magicians is like, I don't take myself too seriously when I perform in any way. My sort of style is comedic. And I remember saying something in my act where it was like, I did like a few productions of like, I produced like, it was themed around Scotland, my act. So I produced like a tonics caramel log, tonics tea cake, a bottle of iron brew. I'd done these quick productions, placed them down, and there was just silence because you're performing to a room of like 50 magicians or whatever, so you're not going to get much back for them. So I was like, yeah, I wasn't expecting a round of applause there anyway, and then just carried on. So I was sort of being like tongue in cheek and sort of playing against them, but also the magic that we touched on earlier is it's pretty sleight of hand heavy. The technical stuff I was doing with cards, but also trying to be lighthearted and fun, sort of paid off, because obviously I won the Closeup competition, but I also won the Roby Shield, which it's not always awarded, but that's for sleight of hand with cards. So I was pretty proud to win that.
That's great.
But I've actually got a picture I found on my phone of like half an hour before the close-up show, and I'm literally sitting there I've just come up with an idea of something that would have made like one of the routines in my full performance a little bit better. I was I'm just going to try it. So I'm sitting there backstage with a Tunnet's caramel log, which is like a wafer biscuit, with a craft knife cutting into it and like super glue, and I'm taking card corners and trying to put it inside and all that stuff. Literally half an hour before we go on stage, and just funny things like I was trying to do like a magician's choice between the three items, because I knew that the card corner was inside this thing, inside the caramel log, the biscuit. And I said to the woman, I was like, pick any two items you want. And she was like, I just want the caramel log. I'm like, no, any two you want, we'll get rid of them. So obviously the audience is full of magicians, they're laughing their head off because they can see what I'm trying to do. I just want that. Like, okay, then you can just have that then. Knowing fine well inside myself, I'm jumping up and down going, yes, I can't believe that she's picked this. And then got rid of the other two, and she picked it open up and the card corner is inside. But yeah, it was funny because I think it's just the way that I sort of perform two magicians, knowing what they're thinking, and just play them off. So yeah, I don't know the reason I entered it, to be honest. I just thought I'd do it as a laugh, really. Like most of the things I do, I just go, yeah, okay, I'll just do it. Yeah, it sounds fun. If it's something that I find fun, or it sounds like a good fun or a laugh, then I'm always up for it.
That's really one of the best attitudes you can have. You know, I love that attitude. I really do. So then, obviously, after the close-up competition, shortly after that was COVID. You know, obviously that affected everyone around the whole world. But then, obviously, I saw you at the IBM 2022. You were doing a lecture, which was brilliant. You were obviously also performing your Fringe show, Elliot and the Magic Beach Ball, which was also brilliant. You closed the whole convention. You opened the convention and closed the convention, which is,
yeah.
I don't think
that's how they kept me there. That's how they kept me there for the full weekend. Like, we'll put him on at the start, put him at the end, and he has to stay.
Yeah, it's like you got no choice. You're there for a few days. But yeah, you opened and closed the convention, which was great. And it's the first time I'd ever seen you lecture, and it was an incredible lecture. You've been lecturing since about 2015, though, haven't you? But never released any products. Like, I suppose, did you have a desire to be a lecturer? Because we've already talked about that you've never really focused on the magic community. I mean, you have in some ways, but your focus has always been building up your own personal brand to the people who are going to book you, lay people. What made you decide to go out there and actually, you know, be going out and doing lecturing?
I loved when 2015, when I did my first lecture at Forth Valley Magic Circle, which is my local club, and I did it, and I wrote a list of stuff that I thought might be useful, and it's almost maybe a little bit of imposter syndrome coming through, going, is anybody actually going to use this stuff? But after that first lecture, I was like, oh wow, I got lots of positive feedback from it, and I didn't really do anything with it. That's the sort of thing that I've noticed with the past 10 years of Fringe shows, is that I'll do it at the Fringe, and that's it. I don't really do anything with the show. Until recent years, where I've toured it to other festivals around the world, like over to Australia and stuff. I've not really done anything with it. So that was like my lecture. I was like, not really done anything with it. I mean, I could have just gone through like Magic Week and gone every single Magic club, emailed them, do you want the lecture? But because I thought, oh, well, they've never heard of me, why would they want to do it? So I think now I've sort of got that confidence of going, well, it's a good lecture. I've lectured at the IBM, which I'll just say is a fantastic convention, the International Brotherhood of Magicians. The British Ring Convention is fantastic. So I'd recommend anybody to go to that, on a side note. But yes, I thought lecturing there, and then obviously at the end of last year, I lectured at the Magic Circle in London, which was a massive like wow moment. So just put my stuff out there. But I'm one of these people that I always sort of not over deliver, I over give. I'm a sharer. So everything that I'd like in my lecture is stuff that I'm doing like now. It's not stuff that I created 10 years ago that I'm not doing, that oh, you can have it now because I've used it. It's stuff that and ideas that I am developing now and doing. So I remember lecturing in Belfast actually, and I think the lecture lasted for about 3 hours or just over 3 hours, with like a 5-minute break, 10-minute break, because I just went on and on and on. I've got this thing. Here's this. Here's this routine. I've got this thing. Here's this. Here's. I just gave it all. So I leave everything on the table pretty much. Which I think is a good way to do it. I don't really hold anything back. I'm always up for helping people and anything at all that people have like problems with. I'm like, oh yeah, come to me. I can help you with this or do this. Or if I don't know, then I can pass on to people that I do. So, I just want to make magic better, really, instead of just something that I see. I'm just like, yeah, just make it better, be better. So I think that's my sort of the point of my lecture is. I thought I've got so many things here that I've done so much, and I want to just sort of give back and help as many people as I can with that through the lecturing. And as I say, I didn't have any product. So I know quite a few lecturers that I've seen lectures actually that basically turn into a dealer den because they're like, oh, here's this product, you can buy it at the end. But my lecture, I had lecture notes, but I only printed like, I think it's like 20 copies of them in really nice design and stuff. And I sold them for like a tenner or something like that and after the lecture. But all the lectures after that I went to, I wasn't selling anything. I was just like, here's all my stuff. That's it. This is how you make it. Do it yourself. I mean, I could have made them up and sold them, but I just didn't bother. But now, later on, I thought, you know what? There's some ideas that have been sort of sitting on the back burner. I've really developed them, and everything that I do, everything that's been in my lecture, and the stuff that I'm releasing is stuff that I've worked. So it's it's going to work. I mean, look, I know people say, "Oh, it's a worker and stuff," but this is stuff I'm releasing. Is in my lecture is stuff that has been in my Fringe shows, so I can send you videos or in the instructions. It is videos that have been shot from the Fringe shows. It's stuff that is from my residencies doing close up. It's at weddings. I mean, if you look at my Instagram at Elliot Bibby Magic, there's loads of videos and stuff out there of me performing these effects. So yeah, it is stuff that works, and I know that works.
And that brings us to we're filming this in the middle of January. That brings us to the Blackpool Magic Convention 2023. Where you will be officially releasing your first products, because obviously you've sold them at lectures before, but you're officially releasing 2 brand new tricks at Blackpool, and you're doing them under the Visual Magic store by Luke Osland. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So I'm actually really excited about this. Now, I've sort of teased them in the past. The IBM convention I talked about it. The Magic Circle actually had them, but I've not properly released them. So I'm doing it sort of through myself because I didn't really, well, Luke has obviously helped me, and I'm on his stand, the Visual Magic stand at Blackpool, and selling them through him at that. But I've never really thought, oh, maybe I should approach some big magic dealers, and because again, the imposter syndrome, go, oh, maybe they like this. So we'll see what happens at Blackpool, and see how well. But I've got a really good feeling about these 2 products. The first one is the Bibby bottle opener, which is a bottle opener bar blade type thing, and it's just a really good thing to have. It's not something that I would maybe go out and work unless I was, here's me really selling it. It's something that maybe as a bar magician you would work it, but it's social situations. If you're at like a barbecue, a house party, you have this little bar blade, you open like a bottle of beer, you take the bottle cap and you just go boom, the bottle cap disappears and reappears printed on the bar blade. and then you can take that printed thing back off again into the physical thing. It's so visual. It's a quick little thing, and it'll work well with any other sort of type of magic as well. It's just something good to have on your in the drawer for parties and stuff. So I've been doing this for years at parties and stuff, and it's just a great little thing. That's the first thing. Yeah, it's good.
And what's the second thing, Elliot?
The second thing is the Bibby bullet. Now this is something I've been doing for maybe about 8 years now, and it's come from all different through the whole process of working it and doing it in shows. And this is like a full project. So there's 3 effects. The first one is where deck of cards it's a card effect. It's deck of cards. Spectator chooses a card and then place it back into the deck of cards, and then you get them to pop their hand out like a little gun like this, and then you go 3, 2, 1, and they shoot up in the air. One card jumps out the deck of cards, you catch it, and the card that they've selected, you turn it around, has a bullet hole all the way through it, and it's the one that they've selected. That's the first effect. Second effect is sort of similar, but it's signed. So they select a card, place it back in, they sign it, signed card, place it back in, they shoot the deck of cards, you spread through, and their signed card has a burnt bullet hole all the way through it, which is it's one of my favorite things to perform when I'm out doing close-up. And I know for a fact, and it's one of these things that's just going to get overlooked by magicians. Like all the best magic is overlooked because you're like, oh, really, is it that simple? I'm not saying this is the best magic, but it is. It will get overlooked by a lot of people, but it's so strong to perform. And the third effect is a named card. So you have a deck of cards, they name any card they want, and it's generally a free choice of the 52 cards. You spread through, and their card that they've named is the only one in the deck of cards that has a bullet hole through it, and you can show the cards are blank, not blank, they are whole. And there's no rough and smooth in that. That's cool.
Wow. I mean, that's incredible. There's some amazing stuff there, Elliot. There's some amazing stuff in that project. So they're both coming out. You can't get them now. They're going to be launched at Blackpool, and then I imagine they'll be available from you and also from the Visual Magic Store. Yeah,
they'll probably be on the Visual Magic Store website, and then they'll be on my website as well. And then any other dealers that want to get in touch. I don't really know what to do with it, you know. So I'm like, yeah, have it.
So what's the plans moving forward? Because here's the thing. One thing, and tell me if I'm wrong, but one thing that I've kind of picked up on interviewing you is that you're a very creative guy. And I think you enjoy the creative process. And I think that's one of the reasons you continue to do the Fringe, because it allows you to have that deadline and allows you to create a brand new show. Making magic tricks and creating magic tricks exercises that creative muscle as well. So, I mean, is this something, have you enjoyed the process of doing these? Is it something that you're going to plan on doing more of? Is this going to be another kind of string to your bow moving forward? Or what's your plans with you as a magic creator?
I love the whole creative process, and I love the fact that I can create something, and I'm very fortunate, or maybe I've worked hard to get the gigs that I can then go, all right, well, I've got 3 gigs this week, I'll go out and road test it at these gigs. Or I'll message a comedy club and be like, can I come and do 5 minutes because I've got this idea. But I have built up to that, to have these sort of, not luxuries, but to be able to do that. So I love just, creating something, coming up with an idea, and then just going out and doing it. And so I think continually doing more of that, creating it, and then obviously sharing it with magicians and getting it out there. So I think hopefully try and create some more products. But I also love helping. I love helping others as well, but also working maybe as a what's the word? Someone that helps other people. As a consultant, that's it. Maybe as a magic consultant, so working on other people's shows. So basically with all the experience that I've got from stage, going, right, okay, maybe do this, do that, change this. But then also all the amount of magic knowledge as well that I've got, going, oh, well, maybe if you did it this method and change that. So I think, yeah, being a consultant, but it's something I've worked on, as we mentioned, my friend Jessica Styles, Tom Laundry, earlier on. I've worked on his shows and helped him as a consultant. And people come to me quite often going, can you help me with this and do this? And maybe that's something I'd like to go down in the future. So maybe sort of produce some shows at the Fringe, or yeah, I've enjoyed the sort of producing side of it. And I launched a show at the end of last year called Tada Magic Show, which was a weekly magic show in Edinburgh. So we had our first season that was 8 weeks long. So every Wednesday night I was booking magicians. So we had started off where I would host it, and then we had 4 magicians, and that was every week. I was working in the venue, I was promoting it, I was booking the acts. They would just turn up, do their thing, but I was basically sort of brains behind the whole thing and putting it out there. So that ran for 8 weeks. So maybe bringing that back. But yeah, I just love the creative side of that. Maybe being a consultant, I think, would be pretty cool. So if anyone's got any projects that they need a hand with,
And you're the man.
Yeah.
Hit you up. And that brings me on to my, one of my final questions, which is, what's next? You talked about maybe wanting to move into consultancy. You talked about wanting to carry on doing the Fringe, carry on doing creating magic. Are there any? You said to me off camera at the very beginning of this episode that you're not really kind of a goal-driven person. So maybe I'm asking the wrong person this question. But are there any goals within magic that you really would like to hit that you haven't hit yet? Is there any sort of anything on your magical bucket list that you'd like to do? Because you've been super successful with everything. I mean, let's be clear. I say this a lot on Talk Magic, but it's true. If you took most magicians and gave them a snapshot of where you are right now and said, hey, at the end of your career, you could have, sold out 10 shows, 10 years in a row at the Edinburgh Fringe. You could have won this award and that award, lectured all over the world, performed all over the world, released, have really high end. You've done so much. And you've done this all by 30, very early 30s, something like that. Like, you've done so much. Is there anything left? Or are you just like, this is good, more of the same is fine?
Yeah, I mean, more of the same would be good. As you say, I'm not really much of a goal setter. But there's only one goal that I've really had, and it's to perform at the Magic Castle in LA. It's my one dream. I came very close to it. I headlined their virtual show. So during lockdown, I was one of a handful of people to really jump on that straight away, and did pretty well out of the virtual shows. I got spotted and picked up from that, and the castle asked if I wanted to headline the show, so I did that. I was up at like 4 a.m. in the morning performing from my room in my house. So technically, I've performed it. Nah, I've not performed at the castle. I've done the virtual show, done that, but and even like Jack going and phoned me after the show, and I was like, it's American numbers coming through, and he said, I absolutely loved your performance. We need to get you out to the castle. And I'm like, yeah, make that happen. Like, I came off the call and I was crying. I'll admit that. I was crying because it's like such a big goal, a dream. But it's one of these things that, and I've been in touch with them and I've sent stuff over, but it's just not really materialized yet. And so we need to try and keep pushing at it. But I'm thinking there's maybe something in the back of my head. It's like an athlete that trains their whole life to go to the Olympics, and then when they finally get to the Olympics, they win that gold medal. Then what do they do? There's a lot of like depression, all that stuff after it. So I think there's maybe something in the back of my mind that's going, this has been such a big dream and a goal. It's the only thing that I've really gone for. If I then do it, then what do I do? So I think there's maybe something there that's gone, oh, well, maybe not do it just in case. But yeah, that's my dream, to do that. Yeah. Perform at the castle.
You know what? Knowing everything that you've achieved already up until this point, I can see that happening sooner rather than later. And then I'm pretty sure you'll figure something else out that you want to do, and something else out, and something else out. So very quickly, before we finish this, you've been to the Fringe for 10 years. I'm going to put you on a spot right now, because I imagine that you're going to find this very hard, because I know you've got lots of friends that do the Fringe with you every year, and you've got lots. Outside of your own shows, what's the best 3 Fringe acts that you've ever seen?
The best 3 Fringe acts.
I know you're going to have seen hundreds of really good ones, but are there 3 that stand out?
Yeah. To any type of genre or just
Yeah,
magic?
it doesn't have to be magic. It can be any
Anything.
genre.
These aren't in order, but there's a fantastic show called Mr. Thing, which is just a crazy sort of panel show. Like, it's just bonkers. I was invited on it as a guest, and they wrote like a jingle for me as they brought me on stage, and they'd done all this research and to do this 30-second jingle. And I was like, the amount of production and effort that has gone into this show. Like, they've got like a band as well sitting in the corner, and the drummer has like there's a ping pong ball gun on the other side of the stage facing him, and every time they get a like on their Facebook page or a new follower, it shoots a ping pong ball at him, and he's got to try and hit it back with the thing. But this happens at any point during the show. So you'll just be sitting, they'll be trying to do something and just be like, pew, something will fire. So it's like loads of stuff like that. That's a really good show. I think that's touring the UK as well, Mr. Thing. Second best show I saw was what's his name again? Keep wanting to say Morgan Freeman. It's not Freeman. It's James Freeman. James Freeman, the pickpocket.
Oh yes.
He performed. His show was incredible. I thought it was really, really good. It's very clever. That's a few years back. And the final show was a show that I saw last year, actually, which will really surprise you. It's called Beats on Point, and it was a dance show.
Wow.
Which was ballet dancers and hip hop dancers both together. So
wow.
They sort of played off against each other, and I gave them a standing ovation. It was an incredible show, really good.
Wow.
There'll be something that's standing that jump to me in about an hour's time after we finish recording. Oh, why did I not mention that? Or, I mean, I've seen loads of different magic shows as well. Tom Crosby's performing nerd show is every year I see that, and I've been in lots of shows with him as well. We do like joint shows together. So he's got like a little 20-minute bet that he does in spots, and to be honest, I could probably recite half of it because I've heard it hundreds of times. But he's just got it nailed. It's so good. If you do come to the end of the Fringe, I'd recommend seeing Griffin and Jones.
I've seen Griffin and Jones. They're brilliant. They were in the IBM stage competition, weren't they?
Yeah, they're absolutely brilliant. They do a cabaret show. It's called the Lock-In Cabaret Show. And it's at 1 a.m. every night of morning. And it's just chaos. But they're two
of the funniest people I've ever seen.
Yeah, they're brilliant. And check them out.
Amazing. So I knew this interview would be good, but it's just been beyond expectations, Elliot. I mean, you've achieved so much. You should be so proud. And this listening to you and what you've done, it's so inspirational, so motivational. It really is. If people want to keep up to date with what you're up to, whether it be dates that you're performing, because you do perform all over the world, and people want to come and watch your show, or tricks that you're releasing that they can buy from you, what's the best way? Is it the website? Is it social media? What's the best way to keep in touch with you?
Yeah, probably my website. Before we get onto that, I've just thought about another Fringe show, actually.
Okay.
2 shows, actually, which is behind me. One of my best friends, Cameron Gibson. I'm actually in his house recording this. They're actually on the wall behind me. How did I not think of those? His show's Power and Fight. So check Cameron out as well. He's traveling.
You know what? I've never seen Cameron, but I've heard so many people speak so highly of him. I'd love to see him. I really would.
But yeah, to find me, back to me. To find out more about me, my website, which is www.bibbymagic.co.uk or .com. But yeah, probably my social media, my Instagram, which is at Elliot Bibby Magic. I post a lot to Instagram. That's probably the one thing that the highest one that you would find.
Okay, cool. So connect with you on Instagram, check out your website. You're gonna be at the Blackpool Magic Convention, so this is going out before Blackpool. Anyone that's at Blackpool, you want to see Bibby's Bullet or Bibby's bar blade, was it?
Bottle opener, yeah.
Bibby's bottle opener. Then go and check out the visual magic stand. Elliot's going to be there with Luke, obviously, and you'll be demonstrating them the whole time, right?
Demonstrating the whole time, and then I'll be always up for hanging out for a beer as well, or a drink afterwards as well. I'm Scottish after all, so got to keep the stereotype.
Exactly. Amazing stuff.
Say hello as well. That's the thing. There's lots of people you walk around Blackpool and you're like, oh, that's that person, I've watched them, or they're quite a big deal. I'm like, yeah, whatever. Just come over and say hello. Yeah. I'll probably regret saying that, but it'd be fun.
You're gonna get mobbed.
Yeah, it'll be good fun.
Amazing. Elliot, thank you so much for the interview. I really appreciate it. Congratulations on all the success you've achieved up until this point, and I wish you every success in the future. Not that you'll need it, because I can just tell you the sort of person that's going to make it happen. But Elliot, one more time, seriously, my friend, thank you for coming on the show.
That's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Guys, do me a favor, leave a comment down below. Let Elliot know what you thought of the interview. Don't forget to check out his website, his social media. Go and see him at Blackpool, and I will be back soon with another video. So thanks very much for watching. On behalf of Elliot Bibby, we'll see you soon.